Hi, in this video I'm going to reassure you that your breastfeeding baby will not be sucking on your breast when he or she is 16 years old. I've lost count of the amount of times that people would say to me, oh, she's still going to be breastfeeding when she's 16 years old, because I was breastfeeding long term. And I can reassuringly say that that isn't the case. And when I set out for my long-term breastfeeding, I always had this intention or this desire to breastfeed until my daughter just naturally weaned. I really was interested to see what a child would do if we just left them without any intervention, and that was my deep desire, but I never really voiced that in the early days. My daughter's now 11 and she no longer breastfeeds, but when she was obviously very little and a baby, people would always ask, because there's always two questions they'd ask: does she sleep through the night, and when are you going to stop breastfeeding? And I would find myself really nervous to even say, probably when she's about 4, but really in my heart I thought I would just breastfeed until she stopped, and that is actually what I did. And probably the most challenging time for me was when she was 6 months old, and people around me, perhaps in play groups and play parks and things like that I got to know, were weaning their children, and often I'd be questioned in a very biased way as to why I was still breastfeeding. And back then I didn't have as much confidence because I was a new mother. I didn't know if she would carry on breastfeeding and never stop, or, those kind of things. So that's kind of the purpose of this video, to reassure you and just share a little bit my journey with you, so you know and you can feel confident in your heart. And I want to help you to find a confident place in yourself as a mother, so you can just follow exactly how you want to parent without doubting yourself, because I feel that we can spend so much time in self-doubt, and I just want to alleviate this for you. Another point when I was breastfeeding was probably when she was about a year, and obviously much bigger then. And again, people would still question because they'd see me breastfeeding a larger child. However, I must say that the questions kind of stopped after that. I'm not sure if I was just categorized as slightly weird, or if I exuded more confidence because I had been doing it for so much longer and people just left me alone. And that was really fine by me. And with that, my confidence grew. I mean, I always felt confident breastfeeding. I found that very easy, and I just love every moment of it. But obviously I didn't feel so confident when I was questioned or interrogated about my way. And gosh, I can even remember a time in a large department store in Brighton when my daughter, was having a meltdown. She was only probably about 1 or under, and I needed to breastfeed her, so I nipped into the children's changing rooms, and the cashier she had a whole queue of people. I had to leave the queue. The cashier closed her till down, kept the queue waiting, came to me and went crazy. She was just saying, do you realise that children could come in here? This is a children's changing room. They might see you breastfeeding. Well, what with a crying baby, trying to keep her calm, trying to breastfeed, I've got this lady shouting at me. I just demanded to see the manager, and the manager apologised. However, that experience was just so shocking for me. However, I'd always choose a place in town or wherever I was when I was out and it's quite busy to find a discreet place to breastfeed. Although I'm confident breastfeeding, I did feel that I would also like to be discreet. So I wouldn't necessarily just get my full breast out when breastfeeding. I'd always lift up my top. If people saw it, that was fine, but I felt more comfortable lifting up my top and having my baby under my top, or perhaps taking myself to a quiet part of the room wherever I was, where I didn't have such an audience, because I felt that it affected the feed for the baby. So yeah, what else did I want to say about breastfeeding? And then there's the nighttime feeds that can be very enduring at times because, my daughter would twiddle my breast, and now I'm breastfeeding my son now. He's 2.5, and yes, he does the same thing. And some nights it's just constant nipple twiddling, and there are those moments I'm thinking, oh, please get off my breast. And one thing I really want you to remember, if you are considering long-term breastfeeding, or in your heart, deep in your heart, you really want to do that, and you're wondering even if you can bear it, or if it will be successful for you, whatever it is, I want to reassure you that these things pass. So some nights, I'd have nights with either my daughter or my son now clambering over me, left side, right side. They slept with me. So yeah, and that can be quite difficult. I might not have as much of a sound sleep, but it passes, and that's what I want you to know. These things pass. There's that saying, isn't it? This too shall pass. And that's a really important thing to remember because, yeah, you might have lack of sleep some nights, and then it will pass and you'll be into nice consistent sleep again. And it's really important to trust that and get to that place of trust in yourself. And my daughter, she actually naturally chose to not breastfeed so much in public. So for instance, if we're on a bus, she must have been between about 3 and 4, she would choose not to have milk, and that was very apparent. I think I may have even offered it to her, and she said, no, when we get home, mummy. So that was very easy for me, and I always had it as backup if we happened to be out and she really needed a feed, if she was very upset about if she'd fallen over. I mean, it's amazing when they hurt themselves just to be able to breastfeed. And I used to be around lots of people obviously weren't breastfeeding, and I realized how much easier my life was being able to just breastfeed in those moments when they just need to feel like they need to come home and connect and ground themselves. And that takes me on to the thing to say that, I'm so grateful. And now I'll talk about my son, he's 2.5. When he pulls me away from my busyness of making dinner, or, I really want to carry on and he's wanting milk, I sit down and he just has a nice feed. I might read him a book at the same time. And I'm just so grateful that he's actually stopped me, because I also feel like I needed to slow down, but I wasn't so aware of it because I was so busy in my mind. So it's so valuable, and just those gazes, the energy between, in the stare of our children and us when we're breastfeeding is just beautiful. And there is just a very special connection through our breastfeeding relationship. And my daughter, she would have milk usually at the end of the day when bedtime story, between the age of 4 and 5, she would always have milk just to have her story in bed. And she wasn't really feeding in the day at all. Maybe very occasionally that might happen, but really it was more, hardly ever. And one day she found a bottle with a teat that a friend had bought me when she was born. And I was very particular about her never having any teats, never having anything other than my breast. And on this moment, it just felt right. She was between 4 and 5, and she found this bottle and she desperately wanted to try it. So I filled it with oat milk, warm oat milk, and she loved it. So that kind of was a little bit easier for me, because at night she would lie there with a bottle of milk. I really enjoy that. And I would finish off with my own milk for her to fall off to sleep. And then when she was between 5 and 6, she lost her 2 front teeth. And it was this beautiful moment where she asked me to go and get her bottle, and she went to suck, and she was like, oh mummy, I can't suck anymore, I can't have milkies anymore. And I was like, oh no, you can't. And that was it. That was the time she actually stopped breastfeeding. And it just felt like it was just such a natural ending to it, and I didn't have any upset. It was just so beautiful for both of us. There was no difficulty in any weaning process. And I was just so proud of myself for following exactly how I wanted to do it, despite the outside pressures that I came across through that whole journey. And now I'm feeding my 2.5-year-old. I don't get any of that. I don't get any of the questions. I don't. A friend of mine told me when I had my first child, look, when you get your second child, everyone just leaves you alone, and it kind of is like that. I don't get questioned, and it's far easier. And I'm not sure how long I'm going to feed him for. Again, I'm probably on the same journey as I was with Alana. So my intention of this video is to hopefully reassure you in some way and inspire you to just really carry on exactly how you want to do your mothering. And that applies to many things: sleeping with your baby, long-term breastfeeding, you know, carrying your baby, picking it up every time it cries, whatever it is. I'm sure you've had questions and judgments and criticism. I hope you haven't, but I kind of imagine you have on your journey, where you feel perhaps got at, or you're wondering, gosh, is my baby going to turn out okay? Yes, he or she will turn out okay. And I have created this 30-day, it's a free 30-day challenge. I call it a challenge because it's kind of challenging you to commit every day to yourself. And we are going to, it's called Unveil Your Natural Instincts. And I am going to help you really connect with yourself deeply and really acknowledge exactly how it is that you want to mother. We're going to unveil your instincts. We're going to unfold how it is you want to mother. You know, the things that you keep buried and you're afraid to speak out. We're going to work on building your confidence, and you're going to find the courage to speak your truth. That's what I really want you to do. I want you to live the life you want to live, and I want you to inspire others to live the life they want to live, because until somebody's walked in our shoes, people can't comment on how we are parenting or what we want to do, and what suits one family may not suit another family. So do it your way. That's what I'm saying. And below or above, I'm not quite sure where this video is going to appear on your screen or where you're watching it from, click on the link. Okay, I'll say click here to register. You'll have the chance to read through all the details. I've expressed everything, all my loving intentions about this challenge, or process, or this journey together. Okay, we're going to be a group of like-minded women. I'm going to be holding your hand and walking you through these very tiny steps for you to really mother with total confidence, so you're proud of your mothering style, so you'll shout from the rooftops. Yeah, so that's it from me. I hope I've covered everything I wanted to cover. Feel free to share anything you want to below. You can tell me how old your child is, and perhaps how long you're thinking of breastfeeding for, any difficulties you've had, and if joining me on the challenge feels right for you, fill in your name and your email in the register box on the link above or below, and I'd love to have you join me and we can walk on this journey together. Okay, have a great day. Bye.